Well, I thought it'd be interesting to speak with you, just more so to get perspective, and because we're quite detached over here in the likes of Ireland and the UK, and we get maybe at the minute we're getting one NFL game a year played in Wembley in London. So that's all the exposure we get to the NFL. So I thought it'd be very interesting, especially for a UK Packers website, to be able to speak to someone in the belly of the beast, if you will. So thanks for speaking with me today.
No problem. No problem.
So I suppose just to start, maybe Jay, we all know your credentials. I mean, you've worked with the Packers radio network for 15 years. You've won many awards, including your Ice Ball documentary and speaking with Jerry Kramer. But I mean, I got a tweet off you today that sort of highlighted how far your family goes back to the Green Bay Packers. Can you enlighten us on just how far the Sorgis go back with the Green Bay Packers?
Well, it's basically the story of one family, and you can multiply it by hundreds of thousands, if not millions, here in the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah,
My family actually had season tickets for when the Packers played about 2 hours south of Green Bay here in Milwaukee.
yeah,
They used to play about 3 games a year at what used to be called County Stadium,
yeah,
and they would go. They went there for years to those games. They saw the Vince Lombardi era Packers. My grandfather actually was in an organization called the Knights of Columbus with Coach Lombardi, so he
really?
actually had that connection. But that's just one story out of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of fans who feel so incredibly connected with this team from a small town that's beaten the big boys from the biggest cities across the country,
Yeah.
more championships than any other in the National Football League.
And is that the way Green Bay is? Because I mean, certainly in the UK and Ireland, all we see is we see the highlight reels, we see the glamour, the adverts, and things like that, the big wage packets, seeing people on the Forbes list of, richest athletes. But can you sort of give us a sense of what it's actually like to be in Green Bay? Does it still have that small town feel?
Absolutely. It's only about 100,000 people and a little bit more in that city. And
Yeah,
so basically, it is so much of what drives the psyche of that city and of that community. And even as much as the Milwaukee area, which is about 1.8 million people when you include the surrounding suburbs and other cities in the area,
yeah,
it is very much such a fabric of the state of Wisconsin, perhaps more famous than anything else outside of beer and maybe sausages and cheese. That would be a
yeah, yeah.
things of the Green Bay Packers. And I think the best thing that I could possibly equate to it was, and maybe give you a good example. What's a town of perhaps 50 to 100,000 that has a team that's been in the Premier League or First Division of English football?
Yeah, I don't think there is one. Certainly not in the modern era, anyway. Absolutely not.
Wow. Well, imagine a team from way back when, like a smaller town team in England, winning 14 or 13 Premier League titles.
Yeah,
That's the Green Bay Packers in the United States.
yeah. And how do you think they do that? How do you think they can keep their small town feel? Is it to do with the shareholders, the fact that actual people can buy shares in the Packers and that's what keeps them going? Is it to do with the coaching staff and their mindset? And do you think that'll ever change, or do you think that that's fundamental to who the Green Bay Packers are, is to keep it small town?
It's part of the fundamentals of it, certainly, that keep it what it is and that are able to keep it competitive. It's the fact that there is no owner that's reaping profits from what the team does on the field. So every dollar of profit that's made
Yeah,
invested right back into the team or into the stadium or something along those lines. Over the
yeah,
years, probably, I'd say the last perhaps 15, 20 years, they've had two stock sales, and they've raised hundreds of millions of dollars among fans who are just basically making a one-time donation to the team
yeah,
solely in order to be able to get a share of stock, to be able to go to the team shareholder meeting, and to be able to vote for the board of directors. And that's all the power that that gives.
yeah,
Additionally, it's because of the fact that since 1992, when Ron Wolf chose Mike Holmgren as the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, and they picked
yeah,
up Brett Favre, and then the next year they got Reggie White.
yeah,
There has just been this incredible long line of football success of making smart decisions on the field
yeah,
in the right players, and they've been able to keep that success going. Plus the fact that even though Green Bay is such a small town team and has that feel within the community, it's a national team in terms of popularity.
yeah,
Would be akin to a Manchester United or Arsenal
Yeah.
Premier League in terms of the popularity in the United States.
Well, certainly because we found that along with the UK and Ireland following that we have on Twitter, we have some followers from the States who are in Texas, or and we all know the reputation that Texas has, right the way from grassroots all the way through to high school football and up into the Texans and stuff like that. I mean, they're very, very passionate, but still, there's Green Bay fans in the heart of Texas who have, Texas or have Green Bay decorated kitchens and stuff like that. It's a bit bizarre. But another thing I sort of wanted to look at with the likes of Manchester United, Arsenal, all of the Premier League teams, all of the stars tend to be quite inaccessible. I mean, you can't get to these people, and they're very distrusting of the media. They don't want to say anything to you. They're earning big bucks. How is it in Green Bay? Can you actually see a player walk around the town? Do they stay local, and are they accessible to the media and the fans?
Well, they definitely, first of all, live within the Green Bay area during the season. A few of them during the off season, but if they don't live there, they certainly come back, not just for football, but for other responsibilities that they have, particularly with charity events.
Yeah,
Aaron Rodgers said in a Green Bay newspaper on Sunday, he actually said, "Hey, you can see me at the local convenience store here and there.
yeah,
Go buy milk. I got to go buy bread like anybody else."
yeah,
And the way that fans approach them, I mean, they know it's a Packer
yeah,
because it's such a regular occurrence to see the players there, and it is again that small town feel. There's not that immense celebrity type of culture that surrounds them when they're out there. There's not the paparazzi
yeah,
might see perhaps with other teams following a David Beckham or another superstar or like a Messi or somebody else
yeah.
in the world of European football.
So, did you feel then, as a journalist in Wisconsin, that when you were speaking with the players, that they were quite humble and they were quite grounded in comparison, maybe to some of the other players from the different teams? And what have you experienced when interviewing them? Have you interviewed, big cocky egos, or are they all quite sort of? Do Green Bay usually recruit, players that are quite grounded and quite level-headed?
The word Packer people comes out of the mouth of General Manager Ted Thompson a lot,
Yeah,
as well as head coach Mike McCarthy, where they're recruiting the type of person, not just the type of player that will be able to fit well into such a small town community.
yeah,
But that is also a very team oriented kind of a player that doesn't necessarily have a big ego. You never really thought of, for example, if you've ever heard of Terrell Owens, the shall we say loudmouth wide receiver
yeah,
a number of different teams, including San Francisco and Dallas, over a number of years, he would probably have never been able to fit in the culture of the Green Bay Packers.
yeah,
Purposely try to find players that have that type of team first orientation about them.
yeah,
They've done a great job of it.
yeah. Because I noticed that as well when I was for the likes of where Ted Thompson has this fantastic, frustrating at times sort of draft strategy where he works through the draft and builds through the draft. And one player that really impressed me, and I don't know what your opinions are on the rookies, but it'd be interesting to hear. But at a one interview with Sam Barrington, who was the seventh round linebacker, they asked him, where did he fit in the team? Was he going to be playing special teams? And how did he see himself? And his first answer was is that he was going to try give his all to the community. And he sort of started talking about charity work when they were trying to get him to talk about his position and whether he'd be starting inside linebacker, because that's where we're quite thin at the moment. I mean, is that indicative to the way the players come into Green Bay and really envelop themselves into the community?
They do a tremendous job when it comes to that. I mean, you even hear of, for example, like drafting Dayton Jones, the first rounder.
Yeah,
Comes from a very humble background, growing up in the Los Angeles, shall we say, slums,
yeah,
Compton, California, and that's integrated into the type of person that he is. And again, it's something that will permeate throughout the community. That's why, for example, Donald Driver, the wide receiver who retired this past year with the Packers, who played for 14 years,
yeah,
never probably going to make the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
yeah,
Probably never get his number retired among the list of the greats like a Bart Starr or a Reggie White or a Ray Nitschke, or eventually we would expect a Brett Favre,
yeah,
probably an Aaron Rodgers.
yeah,
Driver may be one of the three or four most beloved Packers of all time,
yeah,
because he was so ingrained into so many different charitable efforts while he was in Green Bay,
yeah,
Milwaukee, and in his hometown of Houston, doing so many other good things. People recognized that. People were able to relate to it. And again, that's why he's so beloved. Not necessarily because he was a Hall of Fame player. He won't be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He was being.
Yeah.
It's because of the person that he is as much.
And sort of on the subject of Hall of Fame, I mean, is that why there was such tension when it came to the Brett Favre ordeal? I mean, have people got over it now in Wisconsin, or is that still a bit of a dicey issue?
It can be dicey among particular individuals, but I do know that the steps that Aaron Rodgers has taken, for example, being at the NFL Honors event with Favre, standing up with him,
That was really funny. I really enjoyed that actually.
yes, that was funny. But it also was Rodgers saying immediately afterward to the press, "Hey, we actually had a good time with this.
Yeah,
Genuine friends now. We're not necessarily best of friends, but we're at least on much better terms than we were previously. We've healed our relationship, and it's now time that Packers Nation start to do that as well."
yeah,
The fact that he's come out and made that statement has done immense things in bringing Brett Favre back into the good graces of Packers fans. And I think it really is just going to be a matter of time before that occurs.
yeah. And I'm glad to see it because I think it's players like Brett Favre that certainly give the international appeal because an awful lot of our fans have given feedback to say that it was during the Favre era that they got into the Green Bay Packers, and they say I love that hillbilly, so they really could appreciate him. And I suppose as an Irishman we have a whole lot of hillbillies over here, so I think we sort of could relate to him maybe. But to go from maybe a future Hall of Famer in Favre to one that we wrote an article on the site that can't find his way in. That's Jerry Kramer. What's your opinion on his snub, should we call it, from the Hall of Fame?
I've had a chance to interview him a number of times, gotten to know him somewhat well over the years.
Yeah,
He definitely wants to be in that hall amongst his teammates, amongst the Bart Starrs, the Ray Nitschkes,
yeah,
Willie Davises that were part of that all-time
yeah,
dynasty on the Green Bay Packers. And it's a bit of a quizzical issue as to why he's out. But at the same time, he has become sort of the most public spokesman of the Lombardi era
yeah,
during this last decade or so, where he's the one that preaches the Lombardi gospel, if you will.
yeah,
That is Lombardi's John the Baptist,
yeah,
but not just that team, but the philosophies of life that Lombardi imparted upon his players and upon really football-loving society for the past 50 years. In fact, the last 40 years after his passing, that's
yeah.
gone on because of people like Jerry Kramer. And I think he's realized that he's content with that role in his life and that he knows that he's made his impact. Certainly, though, he would love to find himself in Canton, Ohio.
Yeah. And it's so important to keep that legacy of Vince Lombardi alive. And it was good today because there were so many articles out about Vince Lombardi. How does his legacy stand up in Green Bay still? Is he still much beloved and is he still on the lips of all of the Packers fans?
I'll put it this way. There's two statues in front of Lambeau Field, the most storied stadium perhaps in American sport.
Yeah.
One is Curly Lambeau, the name of the man that they named the stadium after.
Yep.
Another is Vince Lombardi. If there's if you will, a great Mount Rushmore in the United States where they have four different presidents' heads sort of engraved into a mountain.
Yeah.
It'd be a two-person Mount Rushmore, if you will, in Packers football.
Yeah.
Ambo, who started the team, Lombardi, who turned it into the great national story of the NFL right at the time that it became America's most popular sport. And it was because of Vince Lombardi, not just as a head coach and what he was able to do with those teams winning 5 championships in 7 years,
Yeah.
by becoming the symbol of greater values in American society at the time. And not just talking about discipline and leadership and teamwork and those types of things, but also being a bit of a social groundbreaker simultaneously,
Yeah.
where he would make it a point to recruit African American players at a time when there weren't very many on NFL rosters. In fact, after he left the Green Bay Packers, he even found out that he had, when he went to the Washington Redskins for a year, he had a gay player on his roster. And he said, listen, don't worry about it. I know what your orientation is.
Yeah.
You're only going to be judging you by what you do on the football field. And I'm going to make sure the rest of the coaching staff and the players are the same way.
That's incredible because I mean that's still an issue today. Yeah, and if he was doing it back then, it's absolutely incredible. I mean, some of his quotes that I read, you would swear that they're from, a philosophical guru. He really was so far ahead of his time. It's amazing.
By far, he's held still among American sports culture as perhaps the greatest coach in any sport,
Yeah.
not just in football.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure necessarily who he would compare to in European sport in that way, but it there are very few, for example, web pages that are dedicated to any other coach's quotes.
Yeah.
John Wooden in American college basketball with UCLA. That would be it, where people could just go and learn about the man's philosophy and just overlook the football aspect and go right towards his wisdom. He really realized that his role in life was to be something more than just a football coach, and he spent so much of his life, well, how do I break beyond just this one role about a bunch of guys smashing into each other 16 Sundays a year?
Yeah.
How do I become more than that? How do I impact the world more than that? And that he found a way.
Yeah. And I mean, it does seem that there's more to Green Bay than, as you say, just playing the football. There's a whole philosophy there. Is that why no one was really particularly surprised when Johnny Jolly was given a second chance? Did they look at that and go, well, they're focused on the football, they focus on personal circumstances, and he's a beloved character of the Packers?
I don't necessarily know if this is the way that the Packers have approached it, but I do know now with a lot of athletes in today's time that as long as you show talent,
Yeah.
as long as you at least come back from some sort of wrongdoing that you've done in your life,
Yeah.
that a team will be willing to give you a second chance if you're willing to produce and you're willing to stay clean. The Packers have embraced that with Johnny Jolly. They know, number one, that he's a talented football player.
Yeah.
Whether his skill set has remained ever since his time in prison, but they've said we're willing to give you a second chance,
Yeah.
willing to see what you can do on a football field as long as you stay clean. And in Green Bay, in that small fishbowl of light, there are much fewer distractions and many fewer people that would necessarily draw you back onto the wrong road than there would be, say, in a New York or a Chicago
Yeah.
or Los Angeles. In a Green Bay, you may have a better chance of success.
Yeah, because that's certainly what I'm hearing from all of the interviews from the rookies. It's kind of like some of them are almost shell shocked because they're saying, what's different about Green Bay? And they said, well, there's almost nothing to do here but football. And one of the things that Franklin said, he came out and said, the best thing about Green Bay is the fact that I'm at the airport and I have fans coming up in a respectful way to tell me that they want me to do well. So how do you see the team doing this year? Do you think that the media are focusing too much on the run game, or do you think that has to become an important part of Packer football?
Legitimately, it definitely has to improve for the Packers to get to where they want to go this year. They have been one of the least productive running games in the National Football League in the 2 years since the Super Bowl championship. And
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers is getting beat up game
Yeah.
after game after game by pass rushers, by pass rushers who know they don't necessarily have to worry about trying to stop the Packers' run game. They can go full bore and try and get to Rodgers in the pass pocket.
Yeah.
And he was sacked the most of any quarterback, I believe, last year with 51 sacks.
Yeah.
Proves that he not only needs better protection, but he needs to be able to get a running game to be able to make defenders stay honest.
Yeah.
Have to focus on trying to stop the run because that can open up what's known as the play action passing game
Yeah.
a lot more, where they can fake the run and then go deep to receivers like Jordy Nelson and James Jones. That can be such a perfect addition and complement to a great passing game, and the Packers need it.
Yeah, and I mean, how do you think they're going to hold up defensively against some of the teams? Because, I mean, the first 6 games that we have are incredibly tough, especially with the read option when you have, mobile quarterbacks who are willing to, hand it off or run themselves. They can put up big yardage. Is there faith? Because there was big faith last year in the defense. They were saying that they were going to do well. And then, Clay Matthews was causing a whole lot of havoc, and then it kind of slowed down a bit. Do you think the defense will be better this year?
There's certainly hope for it, partially because of the talent that they've drafted this year on the defensive side of the football. They spent so much of their draft picks on defense, particularly Dayton Jones,
Yeah.
round pick from UCLA. And what was so striking about what he was able to do there was how well he could dominate offenses that ran the read option. It's as if the Packers said, we need a defensive end not only to get to the quarterback, but to be able to stop that particular type of football.
Yeah.
And then additionally, if you read an article from today from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, their defensive coaching staff and defensive coordinator Don Capers have taken extra attention to learn from college football teams where you see the read option a lot more than you do in pro football.
Yeah.
Well, how do we stop this kind of an offense? And they're drilling it so much more during this minicamp, and I'm definitely sure they'll be doing it during the preseason as they get close to those first two games, where they're going to be facing Colin Kaepernick, the quarterback that ended the Packers season, and then Robert Griffin III with the Washington Redskins, and we both know what they can do with the read action.
Yeah, it's quite scary. It's like a hybrid football. These athletes are. I mean, Kaepernick took me by surprise. Do you think that's half of it? Do you think that this sort of read option is a bit of a fad? It's a bit of a gimmick at the minute, and defenses will, get wise to it and be able to stop it, or do you think this is here to stay?
As come and go in the National Football League, we've seen dozens of that type of sort of change from the norm when it comes to offensive football over the last 20 years, and typically they do fall away. But a fad in the National Football League can remain a weapon as long as you have the talent to be able to make it work. Colin Kaepernick, for example, with the 49ers, we have rarely seen a skill set to be able to do all those types of things where you can run a 4.2-second 40-yard dash equivalent to about maybe 35 meters or so. You can run that quickly, almost as fast as an Olympic sprinter or someone trying out for an Olympic team in the 200-meter dash. And yet he can throw a football as accurately, or I'd say maybe 90 to 95% as accurately as Aaron Rodgers can. It's incredible what he can do. So maybe if that perhaps as the National Football League goes along, but as long as he can produce those kind of results, they can stick with it, and he's going to be able to scare teams for a long time. Same thing with Robert Griffin III with Washington. Now, whether defenses will adjust, we'll find out, and we've typically seen that because of the speed of the NFL linebacker, as long as they read things well enough, they know how to stop outside run games. That's why, for example, the historic Vince Lombardi sweep that you heard of it, as they used to say in days of yore, where they would take almost half the offensive line and move it toward the outside. Running backs could then get out to the flanks and gain big-time yardage. That has been gone from the NFL for so many years because the speed of defensive backs and linebackers is so incredible. They know how to stop it, so you tend to see running backs run between the two offensive tackles. So now, teams are trying to run outside again. As long as defenses catch up in terms of, shall we say, understanding how to stop it, then yes, in many cases they'll be able to stop it. But perhaps with a Kaepernick or with a Robert Griffin III, always going to have to be wary of it because you know they can beat you.
Yeah. And Jay, one word, do you think we can bring the Super Bowl trophy home?
And yes. And so it's impossible almost to try and predict at this point what teams will get to that level. The 49ers have built themselves a roster as well as such a huge stockpile of draft picks over the next few years. They'll always be in contention in the NFC, along with the Packers over the next few years. But because the NFL is so balanced, you can see any one of perhaps 16 or 18 different teams making the playoffs. And as we've seen in 2010 and 2011, as long as you make the playoffs, you have a chance to win it all. And the Packers were the number 6 seed, the worst team in the regular season to make the playoffs of the NFC, and they win the Super Bowl. The New York Giants, the worst record of any team to ever win a Super Bowl in 2011. But as long as you get in the tournament, you have a chance. And that makes it so wide open. And that's part of what makes the NFL so fun.
Absolutely, and that's why we're all addicted over this side of the pond. Listen, Jay, it was absolutely great to talk to you. And just, can I clear something up? You were not related to Jim Sorgi.
You're about 53rd cousins.
So kind of.
Trace our ancestry back to around the same region near Rome, Italy, but we've never found the exact connection. Though when he won a Super Bowl ring in 2006, we were 4th cousins.
Brilliant. Well, we can almost call you a Super Bowl winning journalist, so.
I hope.
Right, Jay, that was absolutely great. Thanks so much for taking the time out to talk to me today.
Anytime, thank you.
That's brilliant. Thanks a lot, Jay.
Take care.
Bye.